Peace, peace. It's Brother Faheem, and you are now tuned in to the Lead with Logic podcast. Hey, you know the vibes. Peace, peace, peace. What's going on, good people? This is Brother Faheem, and you are now tuned in to the Lead with Logic podcast. Man, running a little bit behind today, but it's all good. It's all good. Listen, for those of you guys who might be new to the show, welcome, welcome, welcome to another great episode here at the Lead with Logic podcast. And like I always say, I'm your most gracious and humble host, Brother Faheem. Listen, what I do is I take the controversial, the mundane, and the sensational, and through objective data, research, peer-reviewed articles, journals, interviews, documentary clips, objective fact, right? And I now extract that so that we can gain the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding so that we can experience life in 3D and enhance our enlightenment. Lead with Logic is a brand, a saying, and a podcast. You'll hear that. It's a brand, a saying, and a podcast. The brand, it's an acronym, right? It stands for letting enlightenment, letting enlightenment and divinity win in this harsh level of God's infinite creation. That's letting enlightenment and divinity win in this harsh level of God's infinite creation. Um, www.leadwithlogic7.com, www.leadwithlogic7.com. That's where you go and grab your hats, your hoodies, and your tees and whatever else that it is that you please. I ask that you shop with your brother man before you go to the other man. You dig? And every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I have a bill. I try to get it going. I don't try, I do get it going. I try to manifest my thoughts, build some truth, speak on some truth, and unlock the minds, man. Try to brush people's third eye off. You did what I'm saying? Get that third eye going for you. Man, welcome, welcome, welcome. Like I say, man, the world moves at such an ultramagnetic pace that I'm always trying to keep my boots laced so I can win the race. Yeah, man, it's just that simple. Hopefully, this Monday isn't blue for too many of you. You know, hopefully you guys are getting things done. You know, business handled. You know, family together. We are in the thick of the summer. It seems like these summers get shorter and shorter, y'all. They get shorter and shorter. Um, but I know here the kids have all kind of time off. I don't remember getting so much time off when I was a child. We went back to school in September and we were out in June, right? And it was nice. It was nice. We iron mic'd it through, but we got our summer. We got to enjoy it. And we got a longer time. It seems like we are now going to that. What do you call it? We're gonna be looking like Japan here in a minute, where or China, where they go to school. Yeah, put them in there. Collagen and the protein. Where they go to school year round, right? Can you imagine that? Can y'all kids imagine going to school year round? That's crazy, right? But yeah, that's what it's looking more like every single day. So man, yeah. Ooh, been so much going on, so much going on. You know, Legal Logic was born out of conversations that I was having. It was born out of observations that I was having with people, right? Everywhere I went, everywhere I go, I communicate with people, right? Because I like to have meaningful dialogue. Sometimes that's available, sometimes it's capable, sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. But more often than not, I'm able to have good dialogue with people, man, right? And you'd be surprised, you know, the type of information that you can gather, the type of things that people will tell you. And so people also give you a glimpse into their psyche, right? They'll also give you a glimpse as they're talking. If you're listening keenly, my brother, yes, sir. And so there he is. There he is. Scared of great. See you right there, big bro. And so, yeah, you know, I like having these conversations with people because it gives me a glimpse into the psyche and the mentality of people. Every conversation, I'm able to benefit, come away with something, right? I'm able to learn something about two things about, well, really about three things. I'm able to learn about self. I'm able to learn about another person's self, and I'm able to learn about the our truth in relation to the universe, right? How we relate. And so, man, Lead with Logic came out of just discussing things, and I still discuss things with people, and becoming more refined, becoming more knowledgeable about more things, I'm able to communicate much better. Hey, peace, peace, and I appreciate y'all coming in. I appreciate you guys coming in. But let me say this. Let me say this before I move forward. Listen, it's four of us in here right now. Let's try to get 400 in here. So look, I tell people every week, if you're on Facebook, please repost to your page, send somebody in the DM. Let's get some people out. If you're on YouTube, right, send the link out. Send out the link. Send out the link and send out the link to at least 10 people, right? 10 people that you know are in love with critical thought, uh analytical research, and the accrual of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, because that's exactly what we're going to be doing here today. But nonetheless, back to my story, how Lead with Logic, the concept was born, right, for the brand. Just having conversations and discussions with people, man, and finding out that the way people process and analyze information is very interesting. It's very interesting. And more times than not, what I observed was people are very emotional. People are very biased. And I am as well, to a certain degree, right? To a certain degree, if it's something about my family, hell yeah, I'm biased. Thank you. Hell yeah, I'm biased. Yes, very biased. Very, very biased. But all other things, take a very I tend to take a very laid back, calm, cool, easily. I walk in very easily, right? What's the old saying? Fools rush in. That's to everything. That's the love. That's the battle. That's the judgment, right? But what can stop that is slowing down, taking a deep breath, being stoic almost, right? Meaning negating your emotions. And that helps you think better. And so, what I found myself telling people was, hey, listen, if we just lead with logic, then we will be able to blank. If you would only lead with logic, right, then you would see that blank. So it was an emphasis on critical thought, right? Letting logic be what you step out there with. That's not to say that you suppress or that you totally destroy emotion. Emotion has its place. You dig what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with passion. And passion touches people. Passion touches people. A lot of people, they really identify with and they really connect to that passionate speaker. It's the reason why people used to love Malcolm X. It's the reason why people love Martin Luther King, right? It's the reason why people love Dr. Khalid Muhammad. It's the reason why people love Minister Louis Farrakhan, because they're very passionate, right? But they're also very knowledgeable about the subject that they're being passionate about. And, you know, for me, it's about having that knowledge when we're judging or gauging or discussing something, when we're trying to come to an intelligent decision or an intelligent result. And so what it made me want to do was create something where logic is the basis. But one thing I learned about that in making logic the basis in these discussions, and you've probably seen it too, right? In fact, I'm gonna ask y'all to do this. It's seven of us. If you've been in a conversation and you've noticed that the person that you're having a dialogue with has gotten emotional, overly emotional, to the fact where they might have missed out, or they might have not mentioned or not considered or not brought up facts that would make the discussion a little bit more credible, put a one in the chat. If you've been in a discussion where emotions have taken over, and you've known, right? You guys are having a discussion. You've known maybe the perspective that the person you're discussing is speaking from, but you also notice and witness that the emotion won't allow them to consider or even bring in these facts. Put a one in the chat, please. if you can. Put a one in that chat. So yeah, I saw that quite often. I saw where people's emotions would not allow them to really, you know, think straight. There he is, my man, Big Rod. What's going on? Yes, sir. That's the big brother. Yeah. Um, I noticed that as well. I noticed it as well. And it's disheartening. Melody. What's going on, Melody? Yes, you kept your word, sister. Yes, I appreciate you being here. But yeah, I noticed that, and it's disheartening because what ends up happening is this: it's small when it's a discussion, but what happens when it's a gathering of people and you have a couple of passionate people in the building, in the dialogue, right? And we're trying to now come to a common ground. We're trying to bring some truth forth. But then you got a person who is passionate minus the objectivity, minus the facts. That makes it hard to engage in communication because you're saying you're not considering these facts. You're not considering the facts, right? But the person saying, hey, this is my emotion. This is how I feel. This has been my experience. And that has credibility. But the objective truth of the matter may be something different. And so, yeah, I saw that and I went and I said, yeah, I gotta speak to that. I need to create a brand that will help people to think better and to analyze, right? And so yeah. So today I figured I would come and talk to the people. I'm gonna show the people a couple of things. I had built on this before. I had dealt with truth before. I was on another app building with some people. And again, we were talking about facts. Tia Terrell. What's going on, Tia Terrell? What's up, T? I was on another app and I was discussing facts with the people. And, in these apps, man, X, fan base, wherever people are, massively congregating, it can become somewhat of an echo chamber, right? And there needs to be a gauge, a measuring stick. There needs to be always some sort of gauge of truth, right? And objectivity. And so, man, I thought to myself, you know what? Let me try to provide that. And what I did was I looked up, and I'm gonna show you guys what kinds of truth are out there, right? Is it more than just one truth, right? I found out some great things. I found out some things that were pretty shocking. I'm gonna share them with you, right? All the types of truth, right? From what I remember, there's objective truth, there's subjective truth, there's absolute truth, right? There's normative truth, and then there's forensic truth. These are all different types of truth. And I'm gonna read them, I'm gonna show them to you just so that you can know for yourself, right? I'm gonna show and prove to you that there absolutely exists different types of truths that you can see for yourself and get to understand for yourself, right? Before we go into some of those truths that trigger people. Now, as a chess player, as a person who loves human psychology, as a person who loves authors like Robert Greene, person who loves authors like Sun Tzu that deal with the psychology, what makes people move, right? What how do we predict, if we can predict people's motion? Can we do that? Can we predict people's motion? Right? So as being a student of that, a lover of that, I it only made sense that I had to look into, hey, what kind of truth? Since people are so moved by truth or the lack of it or their perception of it, man, it's got to be something to that. It's really got to be something to it. And so, yeah. So this is what I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna share the screen for you guys. And again, it's always good to I want to show you this stuff so that you can look at it for yourself. You can look at it for yourself and go and look and go and read and research. So this is the human The human systems dynamics, global services, right? And I got to get my glasses out, y'all, because my eyes, man, the older I get, my eyes, my eyes are, my eyes plague me. And then my eyes plague me. So here we go. So let's see the four truths from the human system dynamics global services. This is just to set a foundation for when we talk about truth. So the examples I show you, you'll be able to hopefully identify them, right? Four truths help you understand different perspectives that influence individual and group action. When you recognize and consider the possible perspectives in any situation, you are better able to navigate the differences that limit open dialogue, right? Let me say that again. You are better able to navigate the differences that limit open dialogue and free action. The four truths as a model and a method provides you a way to consider multiple perspectives and then identify the one that is best fit to your purpose, right? So I love that. And this is my first time, right? Readings. I'm reading it just with you guys, right? And make sure you got, hey, listen, I talk back. You talk to me, I talk back. So y'all can go ahead and put your comments in the chat and I'll be reading them out, and responding. But nonetheless, I love what this says. When you recognize and consider the possible perspectives in any situation. So whatever it is, a conversation, a circumstance that's extreme or severe, like a crime, right? Or even a great deed, right? You are better able to navigate the differences that limit open dialogue and free action, right? This is what leading with logic is all about. Being able to navigate the difference that limit open dialogue and free action. There it is, right there in fine print, ladies and gentlemen. So we have what? The four truths: subjective, normative, objective, and complex, right? So what are these, right? Objective. I still got to put this up, y'all. Hold on. I still got to. Don't laugh at me. So what? In any situation, there can be as many descriptions of an event as there are people who experience it. Have y'all ever noticed that you might have a brother or a sister and something might have happened in y'all's youth? A fight happens between you two, and your parent now has to moderate it and figure out who's on what end of the stick, the righteous or the unrighteous, right? Who's right or wrong. They're going to ask both you and your sister, you and your brother, watch this. Each of you guys are going to have a different story based on what? Your perspective, right? Based on one of these truths. You see what I'm saying? So the truth and how we're triggered, it's all relative. It all, it all ties in. But it says the four truth as a model helps you understand such a phenomenon because it describes four ways people see their own truth in the world. Number one, objective truth is what exists and can be proved in this physicality. The sun moves across the sky each day, which is crazy because that's not really that's not really true. The earth is moving, so it appears to be moving, but I understand. But nonetheless, objective truth. Water's H2O. That's an objective truth. 666 is the makeup of the melanated people of the planet. It's not that demonic, westernized, criminality, vilified narrative that they give you. Is 6-part carbon, 6-part hydrogen. That's what 666 is. That's an objective truth, ladies and gentlemen. Normative truth. What we as a group agree is true. English speakers agree to use the word day to name that time when the sky is lit by the sun. So the normative truth, this is what everybody agrees to, right? We see a lot of normative truth in the world, right? With the court of public opinion, there's a lot of normative truth that is expressed. Marcus Garvey told the people, if enough people begin to say a lie is the truth, it becomes a truth. So that's a normative truth. It's what the group agrees is true. Subjective truth, how the individual sees or experiences the world. Today is a good day for me, right? That's subjective. She's beautiful to me. That's subjective. he's ugly or unattractive. That's subjective. Complex recognizes the validity of all those truths and allows you to focus on the one that is most useful at any given time. Excuse me, on the one is most useful at any given time. The sun is up, the day is bright, today is a good day for mom. So let's take advantage of that and ask for ice cream for dinner. So these are the four truths, right? These are the four truths. I'm not going to go too far into that, but I'm going to leave that up for me. But yeah, for those of you guys coming in, welcome, welcome, welcome. I appreciate you guys coming in. I see 9, it's fluctuating. Hey man, listen, whether you hear live, whether you hear watching it back, I appreciate you. I really do. And we are discussing triggering truths and how they impact the culture of ourselves and how they impact the culture of society, right? Because we see the impact. A lot of times we see external things better than internal. Have y'all noticed that? You know what I mean by that? It's easier to see the flaws, right? Or even to see the growth. My daughter asked me today, Daddy, how is it that we don't see the growth? We can't see ourselves grow, right? I was like, that is a very, very insightful and observant question, young lady. We don't see it because our eyes, right? Our understanding, our physical limitations don't allow us to see it, right? We see external, we see other people growing, we see other people's shortcomings, but it's hard to see ourselves unless we're looking in the mirror continuously, right? You can't see the front of your house from the inside unless you have unless the garage door of your neighbor is like a mirror. It's like a glass with mirror. So yeah, man. But I'm gonna stop sharing that. But I wanted to show those four objective truths because they are very, very important when you're talking about triggering truths. Now, triggering truths. We're gonna go over some stuff. We're gonna go over some things. We're gonna look at some things. We are going to look at some things, and I'm gonna try to tie this to everything that is going on in the world today. What are those big events, right? The biggest events right now that are going on is what? The ICE raids, right? That's a huge issue. It's all over the place. I'm seeing people, man, people are really, really, really upset that people are being put out of the country. uh it's deepening the hate that people have for Donald Trump, right? And quietly, it hadn't really hit the fan, but I know in certain circles it is causing people to look at themselves and say, causing different ethnic groups to really consider their relations with other ethnic groups. Because, like I talked about my last bill, uh, those people in the Latin community, you can't expect the black community to come and aid you in this fight if you've never aided us in our fight. Or if you've made statements or shown yourself to be anti black, there will be a little bit of kickback. In fact, there'll be a lot of kickback. And so, yeah, that's something that's going on, right? So it's a dual reality going on. It's a what? It's a normative truth, right? Was that the one? Was that the one? Is that what it was? Let me make sure I'm getting it right. No, it's a subjective truth, right? How the individual sees or experiences the world. So it's I guess that could fit into a bunch of them. That could be subjective or complex, just depends. But nonetheless, it's one of those truths that people do not like to discuss. When you hear people talk about the raids, I know that if you say, hey, those people should get in line, hey, uh, you can't expect me really to stand out there with you because, again, you didn't stand out there. Forgive that, y'all. You didn't stand out there with me during whatever the struggle was, right? And that can cause for a little misunderstanding. That can cause for a little discomfort, right? That can cause for uh, a little bit of triggering an emotional outburst, right? So that's one of the things. This whole thing, man, I've spoken about this probably the last 3 or 4 bills, just because it is so prominent. It is so accessible in the news. The whole P Diddy conversation, the whole P Diddy trial, is something that is out there that has really. I'm enjoying it because I'm getting to observe people's mentality and how people think and how people engage in truth, how they engage in objective truth, right? Because a lot of people have taken objective truth and misinterpreted it with subjective truth, and that's what we see often, right? The subjective mixed with the subjective. So the puffy thing, that's another issue, but there are other issues as well, and I'm going to show you guys a couple of examples, couple of examples, and I'm gonna use none other than the Lead with Logic podcast, right? The Lead with Logic channel on YouTube. Listen, for those of you guys who would like to patronize, and I hope it's all of you, right? I hope everybody wants to patronize. Go to www.leadwithlogic7.com. This is one of my new teas, right? Lead with Logic. I don't know, it's black and peach, right? Georgians love peaches. This is the peach state. And so this design has peaches on it, right? So www, I'm gonna put it in the chat, www.leadwithlogic7.com. You guys go on over there and patronize and support. Now we're going to go back to the Lead with Logic. I'm gonna show you guys just a quick short. It didn't have to be anything super big, but this is something that's interesting that that I wanted to double back around on. And these are things that typically these are one of those triggering truths, right? These are one of those things that when you discuss with people, it can get way out of hand if you're not mature and if you don't know how to weather uh, that emotional barrage, that emotional tsunami uh, that people can often bring if they're not emotionally intelligent enough to, you know, be able to rectify objective truths. But one of the objective truths that I remember that people really didn't appreciate, and I get it, black people, we are staunch Democrats, right? We are very staunch Democrats, and we are very vocal about it. And so during the election time frame, if you were going against the Democrats, or if you vocalize or verbalize that you had some sort of discomfort against the Democrats, you were probably ousted, right? You were probably, at least you were hit with a stern rebuke from someone, right? You hit with a stern rebuke, meaning people made you, they wanted to shame you, they wanted to make you seem unintelligent, because how can you go against the party of the black people, right? Joe Biden said, if you're not Democrat, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black, right? And we let him do it, right? We let him get away with that. So, during the elections, during the months leading up to November, my whole thing was, no, I'm not with the Democrats. I'm not with them. And I didn't appreciate, and these were factual things. These were things that were objective fact. These were physically proven to be true. I didn't appreciate the COVID vaccination and how they did, and how it was handled, how we were forced. It was one thing, it was crazy, right? Because we were forced to get these vaccinations if we wanted to keep up our livelihood. Put a one in the chat if you had to take the vaccine, put a two if you didn't have to take it. Put a one in the chat if you had to take the vaccine. Put a two if you didn't have to take it. Either way is cool, because I understand uh, a lot of people don't have enough businesses. We don't own enough business to be autonomous to where we can say, "Hey, I am going to take this jab," or "I am not." So it doesn't matter. I just didn't appreciate. Okay, that's cool. I see you, T. Yeah, I just didn't appreciate the whole vibration. It almost became a campaign against those people. We saw that with Kyrie Irving, right? When Kyrie Irving took his stance, that was a microcosm of the macro. He really represented those people who said, you know what, I'm gonna hold out. Now, of course, Kyrie, if he never works again in his life, he's made way more than enough money to where he's good. But he's an American and he has the right to confirm or deny or, agree or disagree to take the jab. But all those Americans, I see you, Melody. Yep, good stuff. All the other Americans, those who were clinging to a job, what about us, man? What we had no choice in the matter. And for me, that was unacceptable because again, there were so many holes, so many people were dying. Young people, right? Who probably had underlying issues from eating the way they eat in America, right? From eating 3 meals a day. I'm a huge advocate against 3 meals a day. 3 meals a day is not good for you, brothers and sisters. You should be fasting every day. You should not be eating 3 meals a day. And then if you eating the American diet, that's horrible because most of it is just carbs and processed meats and saturated fats, trans fats. And so a lot of those, nonetheless, a lot of people were dying from it. They were being forced to eat. They were being forced, excuse me, to consume or take this jab, right? Without knowing the long-term effects. That was one thing. But the thing that tripped me out was the whole anti-vax sentiment. And it became so deep that again, it was one of those issues within the black community that it became contentious about. It became very contentious about. People became upset behind it, right? And so people have the choice, right? It's like the normative is what everybody agrees to. We've made it a normative truth that the vaccination is what's causing the deaths. That vaccine, not bad eating habits, not no workout plan, none of that. That's not causing it. What's causing it is you haven't got vaccinated and you are infringing upon my right to live. So you need to go and put this in your body. How and we have no idea what's going to happen later, right? So I thought to myself, wow, people are really that slow. People are really they're really that thrown by the bluff. It's that easy to throw the wool over the masses' eyes. Damn, I'm in the wrong profession. That's what I thought. But yeah, just people's indignation with those people who had the audacity to be critical thinkers and say, you know what, I don't agree with this. And then for the babies to wear it, I mean, for the babies to have to take the jab, that's crazy. Because what happens in 30, 40 years when children now who took the jab get cancer or get some form of abnormality in their blood simply because back in 2020 they rushed and made people take this vaccine that was unresearched and was unknown of the long-term effects. It makes no sense. But again, how it triggered people because the Democrats, because the government has spread this propaganda that, hey, getting the vaccine means being a good American. But that was one of the things. At the end of the day, and I was speaking to, I think that was Melody. I was speaking to Melody about this today. The big thing was I really didn't appreciate the blame that black men got, right, for the party's shortcomings. You see what I'm saying? And that was made very, very vocal. It was made very, very apparent, and it was demonstrated uh, at two levels of government, right? uh, Here in Georgia when Stacey Abrams, I've gone over this, when Stacey Abrams ran and lost the second time to Governor Kemp, she outwardly blamed black men for being politically incompetent, right? Her and Keisha Lance Bottoms. And then when you had Barack Obama at that office, I don't know if y'all saw that he was at an office and he talked about how black men had an issue with uh, misogyny. He said it was a little bit of misogyny why we weren't voting for Kamala. And Michelle Obama, she echoed the same at a speech, right, on the campaign road. That was crazy. So that was something that was triggering. But I want to show y'all this. I'm going to show y'all this right here, real quick. I'm gonna show you guys a little something. Try to give you. This was on CNN. This was a clip on CNN, and it's on my. If you go to my, if you go to my shorts, you'll see it. You can see it in my shorts. It's all good. You can look at it. It's from a while back, right? But I just want to show this to you. Let you check it right on out. All right, let's turn this up. Turn it on.
Being belittled in ways that no other voting group. Now, why are black men being belittled in ways that no other voting group? Now, a lot of love for former President Obama, but for him to single out black men is wrong. And some of the black men that I have talked to have their reasons why they want to vote a different way. And even if some of us may not like that, we have to respect it. So unless President Barack Obama is going to go out and lecture every other group of men from other identity groups, my message for Democrats is don't bring it here to black men who, by and large, don't vote much differently from black women. And what, as a politician, we should be trying to get all voters to vote. And hopefully there are a few good men out there who do care about the stripping away of some of women's bodily autonomy. Why are black men being belittled?
Yeah, that was a political pundit. They were having that roundtable discussion about, that very instance that I mentioned about Barack Obama going to that office and making those statements about black men being uh, chauvinist and being having some misogynist perspectives. Right. That's the reason why we weren't voting for Kamala. And then I didn't get, but it hinted to Stacey Abrams and her statements. But that's a triggering truth, right? When you have these discussions, you talk about party lines, right? Trump has become such a monster inside of the political realm that any type of any type of reflection or consideration that you may have about him, it strikes up a woo. People get very, very they get real perturbed. People get upset. People get upset. A lot of people get upset. Some more than others, right? Now, when a person has a little bit more understanding, they'll get upset, but they'll hear you out. But then those people who lack that understanding, maybe not don't have the wisdom, and might not have the knowledge, they absolutely can explode, right? You see that is the demographic that they're not trying to hear anything. They're not trying to uh, consider why you feel the way you feel, right? But that triggering truth stands nonetheless, right? And it's objective. It's an objective fact, right? When you look at the Democrats, they have gone away from those civil rights gains of the 60s, right? They've gone away from all that. They've gone away from it. And they have gone toward a lot of gains that socially would annihilate us, right? Again, I'm not for the oppression. A triggering truth is this. You know, the LGBTQ movement is not black people's movement. We shouldn't even be involved in that. We shouldn't be involved in it for a bunch of reasons. Number one, they don't really support black causes like that, right? I remember Black Lives Matter, which I was never a fan of. I never really, not because not because of anything that the typical narratives are, right. Like the women that was leading, it had nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with it. It was just their underlying, for me, it was their underlying agenda. It was, I get it. They went out and marched when black people were killed unjustly. I got it. But when you looked at their structure, when you looked at their charter, when you read their literature, they were very anti-black family. They were very anti-black family. Yes, they were very anti-black family. And I thought to myself, wow, this is crazy. This is nuts. Because a lot of people are being sucked in under the guise of these marches and these protests, right? They want to go out and They want to, you know, show solidarity. They want to go out and show some kind of action against what's going on with black people. And that's commendable. I commend that, right? I respect that. It takes a degree of nerve, cojones, nuts, whatever you say. It takes something to get out there and do that. However, I need to know what your true intentions and motives are, right? Because if I'm under the guise that it's for black people, I'm thinking, okay, this is for the black family. You can't now send me out here, saying, yeah, we're for the black family, but then when we accomplish whatever we're trying to accomplish, or when we get to the talks where we're discussing our agendas, and you know, uh, the black family is not anywhere in sight. The black man is not anywhere in sight. And I have to say the black man in that instance because it was all about the black woman for Black Lives Matter. And I'm not talking about what they screamed when they were marching. I'm talking about what they professed when you went to their website, what we believe. It's since taken down. I don't even know. I think they might even not be in existence because come to find out, those three sisters were uh, misappropriating funds. But yeah, that was something that I saw them as an arm of the LGBTQ, of the liberal movement, right? Yeah, we allowed them to inject themselves. Let me say this. Let me pause right here and say this. If you haven't seen Sinners, go see Sinners. I'm gonna ask y'all this. Put a one in the chat if you've seen the movie Sinners. Put a one in the chat if you've seen the movie Sinners. That's important to the point I just made because one of the themes in Sinners was how black cultures, how black people allow white people in, external cultures in, and our lifeblood is sucked. We are used. We are used as a catalyst. We are used as a host to empower someone else's objective, someone else's facts. So put a one in the chat if you've seen Sinners. I have. I can't wait for. I might try to stream it, right, and watch it. Michael B. Jordan is a very dope actor, but nonetheless, it's one of those triggering truths. 50 Cent said in the book, The 50th Law. All right, if y'all haven't checked this out, 50 Cent wrote a book with Robert Greene. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. He's mastery. He's the laws of human nature, right? I think it's the 37 tactics of war. But in the book, he says, one of the vital things that we have to do is cling to reality, right? We have to cling to reality. And I'm saying that when you're talking about triggering truths, if you just sit back and ask, is this reality, right? Is this something that uh we can look at the data and prove this to be right or wrong, right? And if it can be proven right, you might want to rethink your position. But we'll go ahead on with triggering truths. But that's one of the ones, right? Triggering truths. Uh, the Democratic Party was very, very, uh, very, very, you know, non-supportive of the black man in this last election, right? Going up against Trump. And so, yeah, another truth that's triggering, right? Another one of those triggering truths. When you talk about the civil rights movement, right? And these are just top of the dome, right? When you talk about the civil rights movement, we get as a people, that's tied to a lot of our pride, at least in this generation, the baby boomers, the baby boomers children. I don't know, is it Gen X? I don't know who it is. The generation of the 70s and then my generation in the 80s after that. But it's tied to a lot of pride, right? Because we had leaders like Malcolm, we had leaders like Martin, we had leaders like Rosa, we had leaders like A. Philip Randolph, Roy Wilkins. All of these people are remembered, and they're remembered in an endeared and beloved way. But now, when you look at the effects of the civil rights movement, you have to always say, was it worth it? Was it worth it? It's a gentleman that I'm always discussing. His name is Claude Anderson. He wrote a book called Black Labor, White Wealth, and Powernomics, right? And he in that book he dealt with how we were gerrymandered, how real estate was, zoned to monopolize and to push us out of being on the wealthy or more fertile ground. that the power establishment understood that later when they came in to gentrify it, we could get money for. So it, they pushed us in those areas where we would be cornered, where we couldn't really expand our financial, you know, base. Um, he talks about immigration. He talks about how immigration is really not good for black people. That's another triggering truth. That's another truth that people don't want to really engage with, right? But Dr. Claude Anderson shows and proves how immigration really is not our fight. And really, if we get deep about it, it's bad for black people to even advocate for that. Why? Because a lot of the immigrants, when they come over, there are certain privileges. There are certain things that happen. And that's not the downplay. That's what me and the sister were talking about earlier. Melody in the chat. That's not downplay the culture that immigrants bring. That's beautiful. What do you mean, Brother Faheem? The culture that is family oriented, the culture that they stick together. They don't have to be they don't have to be uniform to have unity. They can be Methodist, Baptist, Southern Baptist, Muslim, uh, you know, Hindu, whatever. But they will put their coins together so that they can make dollars, right? All of that's fine and dandy. All that's something that we should observe, right? That we should mimic ourselves by and large, collectively. However, we are in direct competition with them for resources. If you think I'm lying, go right up to my home in Chicago, right? You'll see where there was a huge when it became a sanctuary city and they placed a lot of the people from Texas, a lot of the migrants, they placed them right smack dab in the middle of the south side of Chicago, right? Now, some will say, I remember speaking to some saying, hey, they were only there for a short while. It was a time thing, and it was, but it still had to extract the resources. It's like people who are on welfare, um, that money has to come from somewhere. It comes from somewhere. And so, regardless, people are going to pay. Now, why do I say that? Because regardless of how the city labeled it, how it was set up, the residents were still the ones who had to either share or lose resources behind them placing the people right in the middle of the South Side. And it was a huge, huge debate. It was a huge argument from the grassroots level. The people were pissed about it and they did not want anything to do with it. You can look it up on YouTube. You can look up Chicago residents protest, Chicago residents scream and shout about sanctuary city conditions. Because even before it was a sanctuary city, it was a city that was suffering. It was a city with minimum resources, right? So, Claude Anderson discusses all this, right? The battling of the resources. In that instance, is for minimum resources. It's for food. It's for clothing. It's for shelter. But when you take it up a notch, you start talking about occupations. You start talking about governmental contracts, right? You start talking about these things that a lot of our people still need and qualify for. Now they're in a pool with people from other places in the world, and they have to now fight and hustle and bustle against these people. And it's not anything personal against any migrant group. It's just an objective truth, right? It's just an objective truth. But I want to. We were talking about the civil rights movement, right? I guess I ate some good food, some good brain food. 'Cause I'm remembering that stuff. But I'm remembering my point. The civil rights movement. I'm gonna pull up something, and we're gonna ask the question: did the civil rights movement help or harm black people in the long run? A lot of people are using Chat GPT. Chat GPT can do a lot of this. It can do a whole lot of this. It can do a whole lot of this. So We're gonna take a look at one of these articles, systematic inequality. I'm gonna pull it up on the screen, and we're gonna see together, right? We're gonna see together because another thing that Dr. Anderson was mentioning was integration. Integration was a farce, right? Because what happened was we weren't we weren't really ever integrated. Integrate means to spread power, right? To make power neutralize. The blacks and the whites all have equal power. Well, we understand it's not like that in society. Society doesn't work like that, right? We absolutely were able to work wherever, we were able to live wherever. But now, uh, a lot of our financial citadels, a lot of our cities were destroyed, right? We assimilated in, and that hurt us. It harmed us, right? You know, used to be in school, they would teach certain trades, vocational trades, right? Wood shop, home economics, welding, plumbing, all these things. These things might not have been as uh, fancy or or as yeah, prestigious. They might not have looked the same as a college degree, but they absolutely were skills that paid the bills. And this is a skill that you had for the rest of your life. A barber will always have an occupation, and he can always rent a booth, rent rent a barber shop, and he can, build a legacy in that way. But now, I say all that to say, when you talk about the civil rights movement, we traded all our we traded all of our um, ownership in for being employees. We traded all of these things. We shifted our American dream, which now became going to college, getting a job to work for a bigger corporation instead of creating a skill, empowering our community, teaching young people that skill, and then seeing that they go out and reciprocate and do it to the ones behind them. But now, and this is deep because again, people talk about DEI, right? A lot of y'all, when Trump began to go into that civil rights movement, right, or the Civil Rights Act, a lot of y'all got nervous. A lot of y'all got scared and said, "Ooh, he's getting ready to undo the Civil Rights Act. We're getting ready to go back in time, right?" And so, yeah, that goes into, or it plays into, or feeds into, it's relative to what the civil rights really did. Because if you go back in my bills, and I'm pulling this up, if you go back in my bills, I did a build on the DEI and showed in there where we really didn't benefit from the DEI. We really didn't benefit. We didn't benefit from it. And so, um, for those people who were upset, for those people who were scared that we were going to lose some sort of right, that we had, uh, that just wasn't so. That just wasn't an objective truth. And Trump didn't really, the part of the civil rights bill that he uh, altered. It had something to do with contracting, right? Contractors having some sort of power that was unbalanced. That was unbalanced, right? Y'all make sure y'all close y'all garages, man. Don't let the kids leave the garages open because they're gonna let insects in. But nonetheless, yes. But did the civil rights movement make a difference? Or what gains did we get from the civil rights movement? That's what we want to know. The legacy of the civil rights. Here we go. Here we go. I always called it a misguided movement, right? I told people in undergrad, I told one of my homegirls all the time, if I were ever to write a book on the civil rights movement. I would call it a misguided movement. And again, I respect those people who gave their lives. I really do. But when you look at the long term gains, how it affected us culturally and how it affected us mentally, one has to question it, right? One has to wonder. And there were voices that were questioning it back in those days, right? The nation always was suspect and thought that there was a fraud, right? There were leaders. Marcus Garvey always talked about this ain't, the civil rights is not it. We need our human rights. But this is the National Civil Rights Museum. There's Rihanna at Dr. King at the hotel that Dr. King, that was the Lorraine Hotel. And it was owned by a black man. It's a book called about him called Black Titan, right? He came up through insurance and then he eventually started owning buildings. But yeah, so let's go through. Let's go through. Let's see. Where is it? 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 History. Ah, I thought it was a. Forgive me. I thought it was a. I thought it was a. What do you call it? An article. I thought it was an article, but it doesn't seem to be. But nonetheless, no, I want to. Nonetheless, we're gonna find something. I'm gonna show you guys something that describes the gains. What were the gains? What were the gains of the civil rights movement? What were the gains? I always like to look past the AI interview, the AI overview, excuse me, because you want to get somebody credible. The AI overview says the civil rights movement achieved significant legal and social changes, including the end of legal segregation, the protection of voting rights, and increased access to education and employment for African Americans and other marginalized groups. Landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of '65 outlawed discrimination and ensured equal rights through inequalities persist in various areas: desegregation, voting rights, economic and social opportunities, lasting impact. While civil rights movement achieved significant progress, its work is not fully complete, according to Khan Academy. Persistent inequalities in areas like wealth. I'm reading the big screen over there, but so while the civil rights uh persistent inequalities in areas like wealth, housing, and criminal justice highlight the ongoing struggle for full equality. Wealth, housing, and criminal justice. Wealth is the biggest thing, right? That's why it's listed first. Um, Housing and criminal justice highlight the ongoing struggle for full equality. The movement's legacy continues to inspire social justice movements and efforts to address systemic inequalities. The election of Barack Obama as the nation's first African American president is seen by some as a testament to the progress made since the movement, but also as a reminder of the continued need for progress towards racial equality. You know, ASA fam, peace, 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 peace. I see you. I see you, brother. Um, the movement's legacy continues to inspire the social justice movement. Social justice, right? We chose social justice over economic justice. Again, that's a part of the farce. That's a part of the con that was the civil rights movement. It almost, if you know the story of South Africa, remember they fought hard and long. Nelson Mandela sat in jail for 26 years and then they let him out. But remember the condition. They put or they left the economic sector of the South African government in the hands of the apartheid. It was still in an apartheid status. Its state was still in apartheid. That means the small minority group of whites control, by and large, the wealth, housing, and they were over the criminal justice system. That's what's happening here. That's what happened here, right? We were able to get government jobs. We were able to integrate. We were able to get into politics, right? It went from protest to politics. But now those areas of life that would really help black people to get over to live the American dream collectively, right? We have some black folks doing great. We do. I'm not saying that we don't have black people that are killing it, like Big Brother Ghazi right there, Dr. Ghazi Muhammad, my brother, right? We got black people who are absolutely excellent. But by and large, we are still suffering. But I want y'all to see that though in real time because that is a triggering fact. When you tell a person from the baby boomer age, listen, the civil rights movement did not move the needle for black people the way that it should have, you got a fight on your hands. You have a real fight on your hands. And then you can mention someone, a freedom fighter like Malcolm, who said it's not civil rights, it's human rights, right? Who's fighting to sit in? Who's fighting to go patronize a people that will never respect you and love you, right? And forget the people who will never respect you and love you. Why would you not patronize your own, right? Because that social injustice it caused or it avalanched into cultural demoralization or degeneracy because now we see anything that's corporate, anything that's mainstream, anything that's Euro-centered as the citadel of morality, right? As the apex of desire, right? Instead of looking to self. Um, but I really want y'all to see, right? The what the civil rights really helped out with. And that's not to take away from those brothers who fought, right? Who helped. I want to make this clear. I'm not downplaying or knocking any of those brothers and sisters that gave their lives for the safety of the group that came after. That's not it. I'm talking about the overall long term strategy, right? I'm talking about what we were to gain that can help us build ourselves up inside of a nation, right? That can help us because when you go back, we were doing it in other eras. We had towns, we had a lot of things where we were self-sufficient. Yeah, I am going to get it out of there. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna keep moving, but that's one of those triggering truths. And anything, listen, brothers and sisters, again, like I like I tell you, you guys can show and prove. When you are discussing something, there's no need to get emotional. There's no need to get upset or even abrupt or harsh because truth needs not a friend. And you don't have to argue with the truth. Now, some people will argue with a stop sign, absolutely. But those of you who are wise and have understanding would say, hey, that's what's been documented. That's what the objective truth is, right? And so we can't and we won't argue with that at all. Listen, give me a one if you are enjoying what you are hearing. Give me a one if you're enjoying what you're hearing. I got this cane, y'all. I've been on a cane for a little bit. Give me a one if you're enjoying what you're hearing, or some comments. I see mobile life coaching. Mobile life coaching. Me, my man, mobile life coaching. What does he have to say? Okay. Okay. I didn't know that was you, big bro. That's the brother. That's the brother, Ghazi Muhammad. All right. All right. The sister Melody. I appreciate you coming through on such short notice, Melody. And brother Ghazi there again. Ghazi, I gotta get you on the show, man. I've been saying that for the longest, big brother. I gotta have you come and speak to the people, man. Come and teach the people. That's a very strong brother. Mobile life coaching. Brother Ghazi is a master storyteller. Brother Ghazi is expert and experienced brother in the war that is the inner city, a veteran in that war, and he's a god, right? He's a god that was produced of the FOI, and he's of that Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm, Khalid Muhammad, Nuri Muhammad, right? He's cut from those brothers' cloth. So, man, y'all check Brother Ghazi out. But triggering truths. I, I spoke about, the raids and how uh, people were responding. I spoke about Donald Trump and people who were upset about that and how, uh, yeah, I see, brother. I see what you're saying, brother. Got your other page. I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me about how, you know, people have issues. People take issues in conversation with these things. Um, Another triggering truth: the court of public opinion. It should never supersede the court of law. And what that means in layman's terms, we shouldn't be judging people, regardless of what the media says about people. We should not make a judgment until we see facts. A lot of us have fallen victim to that. And again, it's based and rooted in subjective truth. It's rooted in our own experiences, right? Our experiences of what we've seen or heard. And it's real bad if it's what you heard, because that's the weakest form. This will fool you, but this definitely is deceptive, right? You have to use them both and observe and do the research, right? Do the knowledge. But the court of public opinion, that should never be uh, the omega, right? Maybe it's the alpha, but it's not the omega. It's not the end. It's not the end of the journey for the quest for truth out there, right? There again, a triggering truth with that is, again, with this whole Puffy situation. We can't just say Puffy is. We can't say Puffy is guilty just because we've seen a uh, 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 a video. We can't say that anybody. We can't say that OJ's a murderer just because we have police officers claiming that he murdered someone. We couldn't say Michael Jackson was a pedophile because people. What's going on, Wise? We couldn't say that Mike was a pedophile because people now, all these children claim, all these parents claim, right? No, you have to have due process, right? Just because people say something doesn't make it the truth. They have to show and prove. And we, as the crowds, we, as the masses, have to have the wherewithal to say, okay, this is just a claim. This is not anything that's true. But you show yourself to be easily led to the wrong and hard to lead to the right once you accept what the mainstream is saying, right? Anything that's said without being shown and proven, you cannot take it as the gospel. You have to look. I recommend that you look at anything that I tell you on the Lead with Logic podcast. Go back and look it up for yourself. Go back and do your own research, because that's going to be how you find the truth. When you hear something on the news, they're typically not going to give you all of the gritty details. They're going to give you that's going to draw you in. And it's up to you to go and find out what the gritty, what the, you know, what the real truth is, right? Yeah. So, what's another one of those truths? I'll preface this truth with this. I'm going to read a book to y'all. I'm going to read a little bit of a book. Black God by Supreme Understanding. One of the guys, one of the brothers. Um, he's a brother out of New Jersey. He's an author, man. I think he has 26 books out there, something like that. How to Hustle and Win, Part 1 and 2. I've mentioned his books. I interviewed the brother. I built with him. He has Black God, When the World Was Black. Black people invented everything. But this book in particular is one of my favorites. And you can look at the title and see why it says Black God, right? An introduction to the world's religions and their black gods. One of those triggering truths, and I'm still it still amazes me that people have such a hard time accepting the truth is that God was a black man, right? A lot of people that triggers people. And I understand it. We talked about those four truths: objective, subjective, and uh normative and complex, right? Complex meaning putting it all together, right? Recognizing of all the truths, what works, what fits, and applying it. Well, when you say the black man is God, you know, people are going to be triggered, number one, because they're so used to, number one, an image of God looking like Paul McCartney. And number two, they're used to not relating anything black to divinity, right? It's almost blaspheme to relate blackness to something holy. This book does just that, amongst other things. But this book does just that. It breaks down, right, those black gods and who they were. You see that? If Jesus' color didn't matter, you wouldn't, I can't see it. You wouldn't care if I said he was black. But the way it bothers you to hear that says a lot, right? That's a photo of Jesus. I always thought Jesus looked like the picture that JJ. Y'all put a one in the chat if y'all remember how black Jesus looked like Ned the Wine on Good Times. Y'all remember that? That's how I saw. That's how I saw Jesus looking. Y'all put a one in the chat if you remember that. Some of y'all might be too young. The people that's in here, the people that watch it back. I remember I always said black Jesus looked like Ned the Wino, the one that Florida took off the wall, right? It says, does God have no color? Over a century ago, Bishop Henry McNeil Turner knew that most of his congregation had grown up being taught either explicitly or implicitly that God and Jesus were white. Turner said it would be better to be an atheist or pan atheist than to worship a personal God who looks nothing like the persons worshiping him. Right? I'm going to say that again. It would be better to be an atheist or pan atheist than to worship a personal God who looks nothing like the persons worshiping him. Science showed that the black man is the original man, right? Science, science shows it. And when you talk about that with people, you got to damn near pull the science out because people will be like, nah, my personal favorite is when they say, well, it don't make no difference what color he is. Well, like he said, if it did, like I just read, you wouldn't be so upset by when people say he's black if it didn't matter, right? But Bishop McNeil, this is not Faheem saying this. This is Bishop Henry McNeil Turner saying it, right? It's the sentiment that eventually God eventually gave rise. It's this sentiment that eventually gave rise to the modern cliche, "My God doesn't have a choice." It wasn't some scientific rationalism or Neo-Platonianism. It was simply developed as a way to dance around what this God might look like. You see, people who say they aren't typically pan-atheists are animist. Universal force. Because they did, they might see God in themselves. There we go. Technical difficulties, good people. I appreciate y'all sticking around. Uh, Rather, most still have a personal God, typically a father in heaven kind of guy. They say he doesn't have a color, but in their subconscious minds, he does. He's still white. And this is not some insignificant thing. Our concept of God is critical to our self concept. I'm going to read that again. Our concept of God is critical to our self concept and the way we grow and develop as individuals and as a community. This is why it's important for us to undo the psychological trauma that was done via the concept of a white God. crisscross. God doesn't have a human form. Jesus is the Son of God and a part of the Trinity. I hear that. I hear that. It's places in there, crisscross, that Jesus talked about my Father in heaven. The man, I can't remember the verse, but the man came to him and asked him, our Father. He said, it's only what one, and that's the Father in heaven, right? This was Jesus mentioning something else other than God, other than himself, placing divinity in a place that was universal, right? Um, but you know what? We can go to places in here where it talks about Jesus, right? We can go to it where it talks about uh, 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 Jesus, and where he has said, "Hey, there is a God, and it's in all of us, right? Is the Son of God, and is the Son of God and part of the Trinity. According to Christianity, yes, the Trinity is a complex subject. There is one. Jesus is an aspect of God. Okay, what he looked like on earth isn't really the point. Well, one thing that I like that you said, sister, was in Christianity, right? In Christianity. So that's the belief of the Christian. The Christians absolutely believe that Jesus was the Son of God, right? And listen, the Christians have the right to believe that, but there are places in the Bible where it would disprove that and it would speak against that. And absolutely, listen, also, I would say this about Jesus and the Son of God. You know this like I do. The Bible is a book, basic instructions before leaving Earth, but it is a book that has been tampered with and has been things have been put in politically and other things have been taken out, right? And I understand it. People's level of understanding, how they like to believe things, uh, would would cause responses like that, right? I get it. Because Christianity keeps a lot of people going forward. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But now, when you start to look into the book, when you start to really analyze it and break it down, you start seeing those aspects of the Bible that are, that have holes in them. And also, like this book is saying, or like I initially said, God being a black man, if you just went back to that, right? In Revelations, how it taught. We all know the description. If you go on by the Bible, you would have to say that Jesus had hair like wool and feet like brass, like bronze, right? So that was my initial thesis, right? But I would absolutely say that you know, you have the right to believe that, sister. You know what I'm saying? I'm not mad at you at all because a lot of people are Christian out there. And if it keeps them moving forward in a direction that is positive and productive, hey, I'm all for it. But like the book read, understand that God is a black man, right? Jesus was a black man, which is described in Revelation, uh, which which um which is proven in Europe, right? They have photos of the black Jesus and the black Madonna. They don't really have that in America. It's not one of those things that they put out there. But I absolutely understand it, and I understand where you come from, and I appreciate the comments. I really do. I appreciate them. But triggering truths. Those are those triggering truths. People in the people in my family, again, um, they have their perspective on things, right? And they have the way that they believe. And hey, that's their right at the end of the day. But hey, look, you should be able to see divinity in yourself. You should be able to see masculine divinity or feminine divinity, right? You don't have to be perfect to see it either. None of us are perfect. But yeah, but that's one of those things when you start talking about God now, people will again be triggered. And that's okay. You can expect that, right? When you start saying that Jesus was a prophet to the Muslim, I mean Jesus was God to the Muslim. No, it's not like that. Jesus was a prophet. So there's some triggering, right? But as the book read, at least if you're a black person, at least see yourself in God and whatever God you choose to serve. It's cool. It's on you. You know what I mean? Yeah, no issues. No issues here. Not with me. But yeah, objective fact, normative fact, and complex fact, right? The objective are those things that are physical. We talked about that. Those things that exist and can be proved physically, right? Normative is what the group agrees to, right? Which a lot of times religion deals with. A lot of religions deal with the normative truth because they agree upon a certain fact. Subjective truth is how individuals see or experience the world, and then the complex recognizes the validity in all of those truths and now amalgamizes them or puts them together so that they can utilize it, so that it can be utilized uh, and implemented and accepted within self. But you know, I just want to go over a few of those truths and really, above all else, above all else, get people to not allow truth to trigger you, right? When you want to be triggered or when you feel yourself being triggered, use that energy, use that emotion to now go and research, to now go and look into whatever truth it is that you feel some kind of way about. If you're a Christian, if you are a Christian and you have some questions about Christianity, you might want to go to the highest authority on Christianity, right? And get a variation. Go to different variations. You might be Baptist, you might have to go to the Methodist to figure out a question or get an answer. Same with Islam. If you're Sunni and you have questions about Islam and you see that it's pretty uniform or it does not make sense or it's not quite satisfying or answering the totality of the question, same with Christians, then go to the Shiite, right? Figure it out. Search deep for those truths, right? So that you can now uh, 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 satisfy it, right? It's man, it's nothing more beautiful than being a seeker of truth. We're gonna learn to the day they put us in the grave or that they put us in the oven. You're gonna be learning, right? And so continue to seek out that knowledge, continue to seek out that wisdom, and continue to seek out that understanding. Listen, I wanted to just come here just for a quick second and discuss some triggering truths. Look, I appreciate Chris Cross for coming through. I appreciate Brother Ghazi, Big Wise, Melody, Tia, my man Rod, RB75, and Askia the Great. I see you. Look, man, I am going to hop off of here. Look, like the minister said, like Malcolm would always say, may we meet again in the light of understanding. Look, y'all be cool. Peace, peace. And I will see you guys next time, next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, www.leavoflogic7.com. Go ahead, go on over there and check the website out, man. Patronize your brother, man, not the other man. Peace and love, y'all.